Welcome to Short Movie Channel. The movie begins with Ray, who is serving his sentence in prison, talking on the prison phone with the psychologist who follows her program on the radio. He tells her that the prison has changed him, that he has become a new person, completely away from violence. However, when he gets annoyed by one of the inmates, Ray can't control his anger and ends up hitting him. After a while, Ray is released after serving his full sentence of 7 years. Before he leaves, he thanks the guard who accompanied him in prison and gives him the books he had been reading. It's clear that Ray loves reading about animals and dinosaurs. In return, the guard gives him a book on personal development as a gift. As soon as Ray gets out of prison, he decides to start a new life and never return to prison again. However, he runs into his old friend and partner in robbery and armed robbery, Lero. The moment Ray sees him, he completely ignores him. But Lero continues driving beside him in the car and tries to apologize for being the reason Ray ended up in prison. He also suggests that Ray join the gang again, assuring him that his place is still reserved. Ray replies that he might return, but only on one condition, that he gets to drive the car. Lero immediately agrees and lets him drive. But as soon as Ray gets in the car, he takes it and runs off, leaving Lero behind. Ray goes to his old apartment, looks at a picture of his daughter and wife before their divorce, and reflects on his relationships with them. The next day, Ray visits his ex-wife, Lynn, who is shocked to see him and surprised that he's out of prison. However, she doesn't welcome him and tells him that they've gotten used to their life without him. Even though Ray asks for a chance to fix everything he's done, she refuses and tells him to leave before their daughter, Sally, arrives. But it's too late, as Sally arrives right then. Contrary to expectations, she doesn't rejoice when she sees her father. Instead, she gets upset and asks him why he's there. She tells him she doesn't want to see him again and walks away. Ray feels frustrated, leaves the gift he brought for his daughter on the stairs, and walks off. The next day, Ray goes to talk to his daughter at school, telling her that he's changed for her and that he'll make up for all the time he wasn't there for her. But Sally responds, saying that she'll treat him as though he's not in her life, just like she did all the years before. Before leaving, Ray hears fireworks. When he goes towards the sound, he finds 2 students fighting. He intervenes to break them up. A teacher at the school, named Miller, sees him and thanks him for his help. When she finds out that he's Sally's father, she asks why he never attended parent-teacher meetings. Sally quickly steps in and says that her dad was always busy with work. The school then offers Ray the opportunity to go on a field trip with the students because they need a chaperone. When Sally hears the offer, she gets upset and walks away. Ray follows her and tries to talk to her again, but she refuses to listen to anything he says. That night, Ray visits Lero at his place, and Lero tells him that he's not upset with him for stealing the car, but he asks Ray to return to work with them. They can't find a driver with his skills who can escape from the police quickly. Lero blames Ray for being in prison for 7 years because he left him alone with the police and ran away during the last operation between them. At that moment, Ray gets angry and nearly hits him, saying that he lost 7 years with his family and daughter because of him and won't repeat his past mistakes. Even though Lero is afraid of Ray, he tells him to think about his offer again. The next day, Ray goes to his ex-wife Lynn to talk about Sally. There, he meets a stranger who introduces himself as Lynn's fiancé. When Ray learns that Lynn's fiancé is the one she is going to marry, Ray gets jealous and starts acting strangely, making Lynn laugh. Ray tells Lynn that he needs a chance with his daughter to repair their relationship. However, Lynn tells him that they have arranged their lives without him, and that she's getting married while her daughter loves her fiancé. After a lot of persuasion, Lynn agrees to give him a chance, but only if he proves he can be a good father and has a stable job. Ray starts searching for work the next day. He looks everywhere, from workshops to restaurants, but unfortunately, there's no job that fits. The work he thinks is right for him is rejected because of his past prison time. Ray feels hopeless and calls into his favorite radio show, telling the host that life outside of prison is much harder than he expected and that he can't seem to adapt. His relationship with his daughter is deteriorating as well. The doctor on the radio advises him to give himself some time, as everything will improve eventually. Ray goes back home feeling down, but his spirits sink further when he finds out that his house has burned down, and he's lost everything. Now, all doors are closed on him, and he has no choice but to accept Laurel's offer. He goes to Laurel's workplace and tells him that he's ready to accept the offer. Laurel is thrilled and says that they will rob a bank tomorrow. They agree on the meeting time so Ray can meet the rest of the gang. The next day, Ray meets the gang, Goldie and Dale, and they plan to rob the bank. They tell Ray that he has to get away with the money quickly. The gang goes into the bank with weapons, while Ray waits for them. While waiting, Ray sees his daughter on her way to school and remembers the good times they shared when their relationship was stronger. He decides not to return to his criminal ways, especially for the sake of his daughter. He leaves the car, throws the keys away, and runs to catch the school bus. He asks the teacher, Mrs. Miller, if she still needs chaperones. She says yes, so he agrees to be the chaperone. Mrs. Miller introduces Ray to the students as Sally's father. When Sally sees him, she's shocked and wishes she could disappear. She asks him to leave the bus, but he refuses. She leaves angrily. Meanwhile, the gang successfully robs the bank and races to the car, only to realize that Ray isn't in the car, and the keys are missing. They panic when they hear the sound of a police car, and Dale, carrying the money bag, trips over a student's bag in front of the bus. He panics and leaves the money bag among the student bags. The bus driver picks up the money bag and puts it with the students' bags as he continues to drive to escape the police. However, the police car crashes into them, and in the end Dale is caught. On the other hand, Laurel and Goldie, seeing what happened to Dale, escape in a car. But they crash into a large truck, and their car is damaged. They steal the truck and continue the chase. On the bus, the assistant teacher talks to Mrs. Miller and admits that he's attracted to her. Ray gives him advice on how to make her like him. Later, Ray talks to his daughter again, asking her to give him at least one more chance. She tells him that she doesn't see or hear him, and she'll keep treating him the same way. Ray gets upset and exhausted by the noisy students. Suddenly, he stands up and speaks loudly to the students, telling them that he's in charge and very strict. He warns them that any student who doesn't follow the rules will be punished. The students get scared and stop talking. When Ray returns to his seat, Mrs. Miller tells him that he was too harsh on the students, which she thinks was a big mistake. He feels guilty and goes back to his daughter, asking her if he was too harsh. Sally gets angry with him, but when she sees her classmate Josh approach them and greet her father, she changes her attitude toward Ray. It's clear she's impressed by Josh's opinion of her father. Ray notices that his daughter is interested in Josh. Meanwhile, the police have investigated the bank employees about the robbery and got physical descriptions of the robbers. They also find a car key near the trees in the street. They collect fingerprints from it and head to the hospital to take statements from Dale, who's mentally shaken from the accident. The officer learns from Dale that the money bag is on a school bus. At this point, Laurel calls the school and asks them to tell him the location of the trip the students are going on because his niece forgot her medicine. The staff member informs him of the location, and then Goldie speaks with Laurel, saying he suspects that Dale and Goldie have teamed up against them, because Goldie placed the money bag on the same bus that Ray boarded. Ray begins to believe Goldie's words. Meanwhile, the school trip arrives at its first stop, which is the Dinosaur Museum. Ms. Miller stops to direct the students, but no one listens to her. Ray shouts at the students, and everyone's attention shifts to him. After he finishes speaking, Sally overhears her classmates talking about her father, calling him tough and comparing him to criminals, which bothers her even more. Sally pretends to be sick, but Ray successfully calms the situation and stands up to explain the dinosaur skeletons professionally, because he has read a lot about them while in prison. He captivates the students with his explanation, and they engage with him. While they continue their tour in the museum, Ray spots Goldie and Laurel waiting for him, and he becomes anxious. He tells the students that the tour is over, even though there is still plenty of time left, and heads to the bus. He sets off the fire alarm and enters the bathroom, trapping Laro and Goldie inside. As soon as they enter, he strikes them hard, knocking them to the ground. He tells them that he has changed his mind and doesn't want to participate in their crimes anymore. However, Laro tells him that he figured out his plan and that he also made a deal with Dale, leaving the bag on the trip's bus. Ray is confused about what they are talking about but warns them to stay away from him and his daughter. He exits quickly and tells the students that he has arranged a tour on French Street. Without waiting for the driver to exit, he drives the bus himself. Laro and Goldie follow him, but when they see the police in front of the museum, they take a taxi to keep an eye on Ray. Once they reach French Street, Ray takes advantage of the students' distraction, opens the bag, and finds the money bag inside. He immediately calls Laro to hand over the bag and avoid further problems. At that moment, Laro arrives at French Street and sees Ray. He tells him to move aside and give him the bag, but just before he can move, the police pass by the street, spot Laro and Goldie, and chase them. Ray manages to hide from them. Laro believes that Ray is working with the police, so he vows to take revenge on him. Meanwhile, we see Sally standing by the shore, and Josh hears her singing. He tells her that her voice is beautiful and mentions that her father seems to really love her because he tries to spend so much time with her. Just then, a girl approaches Josh, trying to talk to him, but he brushes her off, and it becomes clear that he is starting to like Sally. Lynn calls Sally, asking to meet, and Sally tells her that her dad is on the trip. However, Lynn can't hear her because of the loud music around her, and she says she will call her back. After finishing their tour on French Street, they head to the hotel where they will attend the music concert. Ms. Miller thanks Ray for suggesting French Street, as they really enjoyed it. When they arrive at the hotel, she tells the students they have 2 hours to rest. Ray gets off the bus, and the driver hands him his bag, which he had placed himself when he was absent. Ray takes the bag and heads to his hotel room, opens it, and looks inside. At the same time, Laro goes to meet another gang leader, asking for help retrieving the money from Ray. Just then, Laro gets a call from Ray, who tells him he has the money and arranges a meeting time. Laro becomes angry and doesn't believe him. While talking, he hears a knock on the door from Trey. When he opens the door, he's surprised to see Solar. She asks him to go out with her, and he immediately agrees, telling her to wait outside the hotel. Laro tells Ray he will meet him in 2 hours, agreeing on the location. Ray talks to Josh and learns what his daughter likes. He then asks Ms. Miller for permission to take his daughter off the trip's schedule since he's been away from her for a long time due to his work. Ray and Sally go out, and he shares with her memories of her mother and the first time he saw her. Sally asks why he abandoned them and refused to send them letters for 5 years while she was waiting for them. He explains that he felt ashamed and tried to distance himself from them. However, he changed in prison and decided to become a new person, so he started sending letters again. Ray apologizes to her, promising that he will make it up to her and will never leave her again. At this point, the police identify the owner of the fingerprints on the car keys. They go to ask Mrs. Miller about him after finding his location from the school. She tells them he left with his daughter. Mrs. Miller reacts strongly when she finds out he's a criminal, accused of robbing a bank. Ray spends a very happy time with his daughter, and Sally writes a lot of things that are similar between her and her father. After finishing their trip, Ray tells her to go back to the hotel and that he will walk around reading the news about her father being a wanted criminal accused of bank robbery, and that he's also on the run in the school bus at the same time that Lynn sees the news. She's getting ready to go out to dinner with her fiancé and gets upset. She runs to her daughter's school to check on her. Sally returns to her father, who was talking on the phone with the doctor. He tells her he's very happy with how his relationship with his daughter has developed. Sally confronts him, calling him a liar, accusing him of still being a criminal and thief, and says all her friends know about his crimes from the news. Ray tells her he has nothing to do with the bank robbery because he really has changed, and he insists she believe him because he really has changed for her and to be an ideal father. Sally believes him, and they return to the hotel together. As soon as they arrive, Ray finds the police waiting for him. He hides and asks Sally to go upstairs and get him the bag with the money. Sally takes the bag, and the driver sees her coming down. He takes the bag and puts it on the bus. But Sally distracts him, takes the bag back, and returns to her father, telling him that Mrs. Miller is gathering everyone again because the trip was cancelled. Ray tells her to go back to the hotel with her friends because it's the safest place for her, apologizing for putting her in danger. He then bids her farewell and goes to the meeting place he arranged with Laro. There, they meet the gang leader. Ray writes that Laro set him up, but Ray proves stronger and defeats everyone. Meanwhile, Laro and Goldie have kidnapped Sally from the hotel. They call Ray and tell him to bring the money if he wants to see his daughter again. Ray fears for his daughter and tells them that they are the ones who betrayed him. He learns the location and takes a taxi there, asking the driver to help him, to take his daughter and escape quickly. When Ray arrives, he tells the driver he won't give him the money until his daughter gets into the taxi. As soon as Sally gets in, the driver takes off with the bag, but she realizes she grabbed the wrong bag when she sees the gang opening it and finding no money inside. She understands her father is in big trouble. When she asks the driver to stop, he refuses, telling her it's her father's orders. When Sally returns to the hotel, she finds the police asking about her father. She tells them her father has nothing to do with the bank robbery because he was with them the whole trip. Then she goes inside to meet her friends and asks Josh to help her escape with the money bag to her father. At that moment, two of her friends, Ted and Simpson, overhear them and decide to help her. Simpson tracks Ray's phone and finds his location. Ted goes out and sets off fireworks in the bathroom to create a distraction. As soon as the fireworks go off, chaos ensues, and the four of them manage to escape. They get to the bus and tell the driver that Mrs. Miller wants him. When they get back to the hotel, they enter the bus, and Sally insists on driving, despite her limited experience. She reaches the place where her father is being held. She and her friends come up with a plan to rescue him. Meanwhile, Laro and Goldie are tying up Ray and beating him to get him to reveal the location of the money. Laro accuses Ray of being in league with Dell against them. Ray tells him he didn't even know Dell and that it was Dell who introduced them on the day of the robbery. At the same time, Sally and her friends are entering the place. Ted uses fireworks to draw attention, and Goldie follows the sound, eventually seeing Ted. Ray sets a trap for him and uses Josh and Sally to make their move. Sally gives Ted the money bag, telling him to leave her father alone. Ray then takes out his phone and calls the doctor he always talks to. Sally learns from Laro that her father wasn't involved in the crime. Just before they leave, the police arrive and arrest everyone after the doctor, and the radio listeners heard what was happening. The doctor called the police, and they arrest Laro and Goldie. When the officer arrives to arrest Ray, his colleague tells him Ray is innocent and that the whole city has heard about his exoneration. They let Ray go. Lynn arrives at the scene, runs to check on her daughter, and, as soon as she sees Ray, slaps him. She tells him he wasn't worthy of the trust she gave him because he put their daughter's life in danger. Sally tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but Ray tells her to let Lynn do what she wants because she's right. After some time, we see Ray getting ready for a new job, and Sally, his daughter, asks him if he's going to propose to her mother again today. Ray smiles at her, and the doorbell rings. Ray grabs a bouquet of flowers to give to Lynn, who also has a flower for him to reconcile. Their lives improve again, just like before, and they live happily together. This concludes today's movie. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, don't forget to support us with a like and a subscribe.